Mitch McConnell, who is arguably the biggest threat to this democracy ever to hold an elective office. He displayed that when he prevented even a discussion about Merrick Garland for the Supreme Court, who was Obama's nominee. He has proven it when he has rammed through as quickly as he can every single Christian fascist judge that the little bastard can get his hands on, thanks to Donald Trump. But between Trump and McConnell, they are rewriting, or they are adding to, they're writing new chapters in the history of this country. This is how a democracy dies. Democracy dies in darkness, as the Washington Post likes to put it, and which is very true. But it also dies when you have two people in positions of power, as Trump and McConnell are, who have as their apparent sole objective to destroy representative government and to destroy this democratic republic. Now, look, I've been talking this shit ever since Trump made his announcement he was going to run for president. And I'm getting real tired of it. I am, because nothing changes. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. These people are using the U.S. Constitution, just like the Christians did. They use the U.S. Constitution to destroy the U.S. Constitution. They use the Second Amendment. They use the First Amendment. They use the Fifth Amendment in ways absolutely not intended. And they use these amendments with a conscious objective of destroying representative government in this country, destroying any chance of repairing it. We're beyond that point now. The country's fucked. I mean, that's all there is to it. Our political system is fucked unless Trump were removed from office, which he will not be because of people like McConnell. Now, McConnell went on to Sean Hannity's program on the Fox Sewer on Thursday. And he said this, quote, "Everything I do during this trial preparation, I'm coordinating with White House counsel." This is the head of the Senate. "There would be no difference between the president's position and our position as to how to handle this. I'm going to take my cues from the president's lawyers," end quote. Jesus Christ. I mean, that's how blatant McConnell can be, because Trump is so blatant. This is how blatant and in your face the Republican Christians have become. As long as their exalted leader, the brother of Jesus, continues to do what he's doing, and there's no reason for the pig Trump to stop, as long as he continues to do what he does, Trump, he provides cover for these little rat fuckers underneath him as they set about dismantling, in a very brutal way, the Constitution of the United States and its intent. Mark Ash, who is the founder of Reader-Supported News and Truth Out, too, I think. Isn't Mark, didn't he start Truth Out all those years ago? I think he did. He said there's a stark and unequivocal statement, what I just shared with you, by McConnell. He's on record saying he has no intention of facilitating anything resembling a fair trial of the impeachment charges brought against this monster Trump. So Mark asked the question, and this is a good one. What role does that leave the Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts cast in? Where does that leave Chief Justice John Roberts? Now, you should know by now that during an impeachment trial in the Senate, the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court sits more or less as a judge, although he can't impose rules. He's there to see that the rules set out prior to the trial are followed. The Constitution provides that Roberts, in this case, is to preside over an impeachment trial if it reaches that stage. But as Mark points out, it's not sure what the word preside actually means. Most constitutional experts agree that it is the Senate that sets the rules, whatever rules the Senate deems appropriate. That means whatever rules Mitch McConnell deems appropriate. One thing that I have discovered watching all of this, my doubts set in about the honesty and the bravery of Republican senators during the Bush years. But there were an awful lot of Democratic senators that displayed the same kind of cowardice. When George W. Bush decided to commit what was defined at the Nuremberg war crimes trials by the United States as the worst war crime, the worst. Supreme Court Justice Robert Jackson, who was our representative at the Nuremberg trials, a prosecutor, defined the worst war crime that could be committed, and that is the invasion of another country with no provocation. And the reference, of course, was to Germany invading Czechoslovakia, invading Poland, invading Austria, But George W. Bush did it to Iraq. The worst war crime ever, according to our definition. And when that happened, I thought to myself, where are the Republicans? Where are the Democrats? Where are the senators who are going along with this? There were a few that didn't, sure. And that's when it became clear to me that the age of honorable Republicans, and yes, there have been a few, was now ended. I know a lot of people think it ended long before that, but to me, the real ending was 2003, when when Bush ordered shock and awe, indiscriminate and relentless bombing of one of the oldest civilizations in the history of the human race, for no reason other than the fact that he could, so he could call himself a war president. We've had some sick leadership in this country in the past 35 or 40 years. We really have. Not all of them in the Oval Office. But now, here we are in 2019, and every single Republican that serves in the Senate, and obviously every single Republican that served on the House Judiciary Committee and the House Intelligence Committee, and I think we'll soon find out in the entire House, every single one of them is a cowardly, rat-fucking disgrace to, and I hate to use this terminology because I hate to hear it, but they're a disgrace to every single American who has died thinking that he or she was defending freedom. Now, in so many instances, our soldiers died not defending freedom at all. That was the bullshit ruse that was put out there and said, well, go fight and die because you're defending freedom. In a lot of instances, that was horseshit. You know it as well as I do. We were defending capitalism. We were defending imperialism. But there also have been hundreds upon thousands upon millions, that might be stretching it, hundreds of thousands, millions of young Americans who died thinking they were fighting for freedom, and in some instances they were. But if you look back over the past century, maybe 2 centuries, century and a half, the instances when young Americans died defending freedom were few and far between. They really were. If you can honestly look at why we got involved in certain armed conflicts. I mean, just an example, 38,000 Americans roughly died during the Korean conflict. Why were we there? 56,000 Americans died during the Vietnamese conflict. Why were we there? You see what I mean? Iraq, Afghanistan. It just goes on and on. The Senate has given away its right to declare war. I should say the Congress. The Congress itself has given it away. With, I believe it was called the War Powers Act. All of that was handed off to one person, the President of the United States. In the hands of a monster like Trump, you might as well just hand him a couple of loaded six-shooters and get him drunk and put him in a room full of Democrats. Which gets me back to Supreme Court Justice John Roberts. The way the rules are set up for impeachment would seem to leave no power whatsoever in the hands of the presiding Supreme Court Chief Justice, because the rules are made by this cowardly piece of shit, Mitch McConnell, and agreed to by the remaining cowards who make up the Republican senators. What a bunch of gutless, spineless bastards. What a bunch of gutless, spineless bastards. But as Mark points out, the intent of the framers was not to facilitate a sham impeachment trial. And undoubtedly, the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, John Roberts, understands that, as do most scholars of the U.S. Constitution. The impeachment stipulations and requirements were put into the Constitution, we all should know this by now, after much debate by the framers of the Constitution as, first of all, to whether or not it was necessary. And when it became clear that it was extremely necessary to have some way of removing an out-of-control chief executive other than an election, then the rules and regs for impeachment were drawn up and included in the Constitution. If Mitch McConnell's statement in and of itself amounts to an act of misconduct, and if he is to be taken literally, Mark writes, then the coming trial will surely violate at least the intent of the framers at a bare minimum. Yes, it will. Now, Roberts, being a scholar of the Constitution, as he is, Roberts knows in advance that this is creating for him a dilemma. He's been served notice, Chief Justice John Roberts has, that he will be asked to provide over what the Senate leader, Mitch McConnell, openly admits will be a sham trial. It'll be bullshit. In effect, making the Chief Justice, this is how corrupt Trump is, this makes the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court a co-abuser of the Constitution. With or without his consent. He doesn't have to agree to any of this. It's in the Constitution what his duties are. It's also in the Constitution what Mitch McConnell's duties are. And it's also in the Constitution what constitutes high crimes and misdemeanors. This fucking criminal Trump, this gangster Trump, and a lot of us have been saying this for a couple of years now, is systematically destroying every single function of U.S. government. He is eroding and destroying it all, every goddamn bit of it. And no one's stopping him. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. You have your choice. You can listen to the ranting with the audio podcast or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.